One of the loudest voices of near universal condemnation of this amnesty bill is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. He joins us now. Mr. Attorney General, nice to have you. Let's take a look at some of the more egregious parts of this bill. It allows 5,000, quote, encounters a day, encounters that Democrats turn into illegal alien admissions into this country. Before those border restrictions, alleged restrictions, kick in, it gives apparatchiks like Alejandro Mayorkas discretion over closing the border. It provides automatic work permits for asylum seekers. But you're really astonished, you are, Mr. Attorney General, that Republicans seek to kneecap states like Texas from defending ourselves from a lawless federal government on illegal immigration. Explain that.
So for all of those reasons, not only am I, but we're leading a letter right now from many attorney generals who are going to ask that Congress, that the Senate not pass this because, as you said, there's many bad provisions. All we're doing here is aiding and abetting Joe Biden, who has had this failed policy of immigration that's allowed 10 to 12 million people into this country. As you said at the beginning of the show, people don't like this, not in any group. This is not good for the country. And my question is, why would the Republicans basically put their rubber stamp of approval on Joe Biden's policies? Because that's all this does, is it doubles down on his policy. It gives him authority to do it. And my question is whether it's this saying 5,000 more people can come in a day and giving him authority to do that, or whether it's giving Mayorkas the ability to claim asylum for everybody that walks in the door under his own discretion instead of having to go through a court, or whether it's them kneecapping Republican AGs who have a legitimate right to sue over the impact of illegal immigration. Now suddenly we can't sue in our own areas. We've been able to do it for the history of our country. Now we've got to take it to a D.C. circuit that's much more liberal than many of the circuits that we're in. It's all crazy, and it makes no sense for the Republicans to pass this.
I don't want to gloss over what you just said. For those around the rest of the country, what you have to understand is, say Texas has a problem, which we do. We have been a victim of Joe Biden and the Democrat Party and their massive illegal immigration campaign. Say we want to take that harm to a court. We would go, Mr. Attorney General, we're at the Fifth Circuit, right? Would usually take up that, right? And that's usually a more conservative constitutional court. Am I correct?
Yeah, so we'd normally file in Texas, and then it would get appealed to the Fifth Circuit either by us or by the administration. That's our right to do in any other type of case. In this one, they're trying to change that.
Right. And so in this bill, folks, it would automatically go to left-wing, anti-American Washington, D.C., where, as you know, as some recent rulings, which we're going to get to here in a minute, these folks in D.C. are left-wing, anti-constitutional folks. And that's where the Republicans wanted to make sure all illegal immigration problems were adjudicated in Washington, D.C. Gee, what could go wrong? Mr. Attorney General, after years of denying there was even a problem on the border, Joe Biden came out earlier today and slammed those who don't support illegal immigration. He called them MAGA Republicans for the crisis he created. Listen to this.
The American people want a solution that puts an end to the empty political rhetoric, which has failed to do anything for so long. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends.
Yeah, so Donald Trump is not even in political office, and that's the reason why. The last time he was, we didn't have rampant, uncontrolled illegal immigration like we do now. But what's your reaction to this, sir?
You know, I have a hard time even believing he said it. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Go back to when Trump was in office, the numbers were significantly lower by some multiple of 3 or 4, maybe 5 times more people are coming across the border than they were under Trump. He's dismantled every policy. Biden has dismantled every policy that worked. He did it on purpose. There's no denying it. And for him to get up there and lie to the American public, as much as you can lie, he is lying. He knows it's not true, and he speaks it as if it is. That's what you call a lie. And the reality is, we can see the numbers. They can be compared where the problem came from, and it was not. It is clearly absolutely right.
Right. It is all at his feet. Now, look, I want to talk about the bill. Before we move on to some other issues, I want to talk about this bill because you and I had a radio interview where you and I were speaking about the political impact of a bill like this and what I call the uniparty, Republicans and Democrats, who have teamed up over the last, I'd say, half century to stab our people in the back on illegal immigration. the same cabal of Republicans and Democrats have teamed up once again. President Trump, when he was in office, Mr. Attorney General, he took our existing laws and he figured out the secret sauce. He figured out how to maneuver around them, and he put a stop to rampant, uncontrolled illegal immigration, much to the chagrin of the Wall Street Journal and the Karl Rove type Republicans out there around this country who have colluded with Democrats all of these many decades on illegal immigration. So what this bill, if it was adopted, what it would do and what it was designed to do is if President Trump won, it would thwart him. It would stop him from protecting America from rampant, uncontrolled illegal immigration by basically codifying illegal immigration and calling it legal. Do you think that's a fair read on my part?
It sure is. It would allow the Biden administration to say, hey, the Republicans are the ones that agreed to this. All this complaint about illegal immigration and what it's doing to our country, now the Republicans have said it's on them, that they agree with it, that this is a good thing. So I can't even imagine, not only would you empower Joe Biden to potentially win an election that he's got very little chance of winning, but you also, if Donald Trump does win, then he also is handcuffed, and it makes it much more difficult for him to enforce law because they've just dismantled the law that Joe Biden wasn't enforcing anyway. So it's a bad deal no matter what happens, and I don't understand why Republican leadership would want this.
Now, we were mentioning corrupt D.C. courts earlier. A 3-Democrat D.C. Court of Appeals panel has just decided the presidents no longer enjoy presidential immunity. They do this all in an effort to stop President Trump. They said, quote, any executive immunity that may have protected him, meaning Trump, while he served as president no longer protects him against this prosecution, end quote. This is, of course, headed to the Supreme Court. But what do you make of these leftists throwing presidential immunity right out the window? And if this is left to stand, what precedent does it set?
So what I see liberal judges that set aside past precedent. They set aside current law, and they rule politically because they don't like President Trump. That's clearly what's going on here. And I fear for our country because if the rule of law is not followed, whether you're a liberal Democrat or conservative Republican, the rule of law should stay in place. It should be we have political prosecution, and that's what's happening in our country, and it ruins the credibility of the court system.
Sure does. You know, the next Supreme Court term begins in October, and what do you think? What is the timetable on all of this? Do you think that the High Court could move it up? Do you think they're gonna move this up because it's so important to rule on this, or do you think it's going to go to the regular court schedule? What do you think?
Look, I don't know. I mean, it's such a bad ruling, and puts presidents and future presidents in such a bad spot about knowing what they can talk about among their own staff, and it makes it very difficult for communication to occur. I would hope that the Supreme Court would take it up immediately and get it done in this term, and not make them wait till October of next year or later this year.
Okay. I have one final question. It's our friend Fani Willis. In Georgia, things have gone from bad to worse for her and the people of Georgia. According to a new court filing, witnesses are expected to testify that Willis and her married boyfriend, Nathan Wade, quote, cohabitated at an Airbnb in Hapeville that was paid for by taxpayer money to serve as a safe house for Wade and Miss Willis. Willis also admitted to this affair that she had with this man in court filings. And we all remember when Fani Willis said this.
I certainly will not be choosing people to date that work under me. Let me just say that. If you chose to have inappropriate contact with employees, I mean, there's nothing that I can say on it other than it is distracting. It is certainly inappropriate for the #1 law enforcement officer in this state. It will be very unfortunate if the taxpayers of this community have to pay for any of those lawsuits.
Yeah, that didn't age very well. Some legal analysts out there, Mr. Attorney General, have argued that her apparent lack of ethics and trustworthiness have no bearing on the cases she brought against President Trump and his co-defendants. Do you buy that?
No, I don't. I mean, this is clearly a conflict of interest. She's using taxpayer dollars to take care of her relationship. And my opinion is that she should be investigated. She should recuse herself. And if she's not recused, she should be taken out by another judge who has a desire to have justice served in this case, because clearly she's not operating under that system.
Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of the great state of Texas, sir. Appreciate the time and legal expertise.